Hi everyone. So as you may remember, last week I was actually not working on my own computer, which was fortunately not a huge barrier, or really much of a barrier, any barrier at all, to my working on my code, which is one of the handy things about working with Git and GitHub, as well as our open source tools, because everything that I didn't have, I was able to easily download and install on the computer that I was using. So for this week, I'm going to follow a process that you all are probably going to follow quite frequently, which is when I'm ready to start working, I'm going to end up, cloning my repo as the main place to start. So I'm here at my dataviz repo. I'm going to go ahead and copy the location of the repository. In Terminal, I'm going to go first to my desktop, and then I'm going to go into my dataviz folder, and I check, and I just have that in there. So I'm going to say git clone and put in that repo. And then now that I see that it's in there, I'm going to navigate into that, and I'm going to do a git status. And so it's basically just saying that git status is just like, right, you just cloned this repo, everything's good. Now, here's the thing. When I was working on my file set last week, I had added some material that I then took out when we were working in class. And so if I go to my newsfeed, which is my main version, I see down here as I navigate through this that I have my sort of abbreviated versions of variables, example variables that we worked on in class. The thing is that I'd actually like to be working with a different version of this file. If I go to the history here, I am reminded that if I look at the file in this state, that actually I had a whole bunch of other material in here. Specifically, I had this array of article objects. And this is something that I'd like to be using right now. Now, there are a couple of ways that I can handle this. Obviously, I always have the option, right? I could literally just copy and paste this stuff out of here. Unfortunately, if I were to go to my file, my current newsfeed file, right, and let's say open this without Tana, that's what I'm going to do. I can go ahead and do that, but I'm not sure. See, when I paste it in, I get this kind of annoying, these plus symbols, right? That's going to screw up my code. It's not going to work properly here. So actually, a preferable way to do this, I'm not going to save those changes. A preferable way to do this, rather than trying to kind of copy and paste things out of my old file, is I can actually roll back, or the term is check out, a particular copy of my file. So this is the kind of thing where, as you are going through your assignments, this is, again, or not even just your assignments in general, right? This is one of the huge advantages of working with Git and GitHub, is that through this system, I can go back to an earlier version of my files very, very easily. And this is helpful in case maybe I do something and I commit it, but then I want to change it, or there's an error, right? If I'm committing consistently as things work, even if I commit later something that's broken, I can easily go back to another file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here, because this is the version that has the arrays in it. I'm going to, again, click the clipboard here. So this is actually a much longer number than it looks like. What you see there is this is actually the entire string, right? So I can't just copy this short version. Copy it to the clipboard. And here I can say git checkout, okay, and then I put in that long string, and it says, you're in a detached head state. This is a whole bunch of stuff. You can look around, make experimental changes, and commit them, and you can discard any commits you make in this state without impacting any branches by performing the checkout. I don't even know what that means. It doesn't really matter. Basically, what's valuable about this is that now when I open this file, this is sort of a little bit of the magic. Now when I open this file, first of all, you can see that the newsfeed2 file no longer exists, because I added that file in the next commit. In this one, I just have the newsfeed, and if I scroll down, you'll see it's quite like turning back time. So it's pretty neat. Again, it's one of the advantages of this is that it's going to give us the opportunity, is really just so that you know that you kind of have a safe space in which to work. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use this articles variable. I'm actually going to expand it a little bit. So I'm going to sort of make this up, but I'm going to add a property here, and I'm going to call this country Europe. That's not really a country, is it? Region. Let's call it region. That will be better. So region. Actually, what's a good one? Okay, no, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to do this as source. New York Times. Okay, and the source, and I need to make sure I add my comma there. Here I'm going to do the source is Le Monde. And I can also add some additional material, right? This is also Le Monde. So basically what I'm doing is this is really for demonstration purposes, obviously. I'm creating copies of the articles at the moment, but you can see that I now have a list of 4 objects, each of which is an article for me. Some objects, and I'm going to say each object is an article. Okay. So what I have now is I have a list of items, and what I want to be able to do is, and I'm going to go ahead and change some information about one of these. So I'm going to say, go ahead and pull up another article. So in this case, this is from today about reporters returning to Fallujah. This is a New York Times article, so I'm going to just, essentially have two different New York Times articles. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly, let's put this down here. Quickly replace this information. And basically what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to sort this list, right? So you can imagine that at any given moment, you might have a variety of content on a page. You want to be able to sort one piece of information from another. And this is exactly what we're going to do with our articles here. So just do that. And I'm not going to worry about the image right now. Okay. So, okay, and the fact that it's okay to leave the Le Monde version the same. It's for the example here. Okay, so I now have a list of articles. In that list, I have 2 articles from the New York Times, 2 articles from Le Monde, and I want to sort these articles on the basis of where they of the publication that they come from. So to do that, I'm going to need to do a couple of things. The first thing I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to find a way to go through the items in this list. Now, in the way that fortunately there's a construct in programming that we call a for loop. And a for loop is just a mechanism that basically, or actually, just goes through every item in a list. And so what we're going to say is for, what I'm going to do first is write out in, we sometimes call this pseudocoding. I'm going to write it out in English. Right, what I want to do. I want to loop, go through each item in the list, and print a message to the console every time I find one. Oh, that's nice, actually. It was published on New York Times. Okay, so that's my objective. So to do this, I'm going to need, again, what we call a for loop. Now a for loop, again, what it lets us do is it lets us move through each item in a list in succession. Here's how we write a for loop. I'm going to write, so what I want to say is for every item in this list, I want to do something. So I say for, and now this is going to be a little bit tricky. This is a very traditional way of doing a for loop. If you know how to do it this way, you'll always be able to figure out how to do it. So in order to go through the list, I need a counter, right? So imagine that the for loop is like a turnstile, right? It is counting every time something goes through it, but in order to keep track, it needs a counter, right? It needs something saying, okay, one item went through, the second, two items have been through, three items have been through, etc. So the way that we do this in JavaScript is we create a variable. This is a special syntax. You're not going to see this anywhere else. But we create a variable the way we have created all of our variables. So I can say var counter equals 0. So what I'm saying there is I have a counter for the list. Right? It's going to tick off every time I go through the list, every item that passes through my process. I'm going to start it at 0. In programming, we start counting at 0. It's just a thing. And I'm going to say I want the counter to go up to, well, what do I want it to go up to? I want it to be less than the length of my list, right? I want to go through the whole list, but I don't want to try to go longer than the list. And fortunately for us, there is a built-in function, right? There's a built-in function that lists have where we can ask for the length. And so we're going to say my articles, right? Because my articles I should actually put this in here in the my articles. Wow, I really can't spell right now. In the my articles list. So I want to say, look, I want it to be, I want it to go up to the number of things that I have. My articles.length. Okay. And then the thing I have to say is, by how much do I want to count each time something goes through? I want to go through every item, so I'm going to count up by 1. And again, this is a special syntax you're really only going to see a lot in JavaScript. So I'm going to say counter plus plus. Plus plus is a shorthand that means the value that counter currently has plus 1, right? So the first time it's going to start out at 0, and then we're going to hold everything together by putting it between these curly braces, okay? So basically what's going to happen is it's going to take, I'm referencing the my articles list, right? That's why I'm using this variable name. And I'm going to say, that's the thing that I want to loop through. And what I'm going to say is, I want you to create a counter, start it at 0. I want you to keep incrementing the counter by 1, by its value, plus 1, every time you go through this loop until it is, as long as it is less than the length of the list that I'm measuring, okay? I know this is a lot. It's just kind of a convention, and you'll get used to it, and then it will be fine. And I'm happy to talk about this more in class. It's a little hard to explain it without questions, so please do think about questions that you have over the weekend. So what I'm going to do for right now is I'm just going to do something very simple, and I'm just going to say, look, I just want you to print out the item that is at the position that the counter is currently at, right? So if you recall from last week's videos, if I want to get the item in position 2, right, I can just go using the square brackets with the list. So in this case, at first it's going to be 0, then it's going to be 1, then it's going to be 2, 3, etc. So how do I test this? I can actually just come into Chrome. This is why, we love Chrome and the developer tools, because I can go ahead and open this page in Chrome. And now that script has automatically run as soon as I've loaded the page. And I can see the output by opening this up and going to the console tab. And if everything has worked correctly, you can see that I'm getting, in order, the first, second, third, and fourth objects in my array spit out to the console. Okay, so that's our for loop. That's a very important one. When we come back, we're going to talk about how we can use the if statement to sort.